Hey comic lovers, we're back out here in our weekly garage sale. Welcome back to the show. And we're back out here with Thor, our German Shepherd mascot. Hey buddy. And he's sporting his superhero vest here, as you can see.
I want a cape.
Okay. That's a little bit something about the old man there.
Hey, capes are cool.
Okay, all right. I've heard some arguments to the contrary, but all right.
Hey, you don't fight in a cape, but you can wear a cape.
Ah, okay. All right, so today we are talking about obscure comic book characters. Characters that you don't hear a lot about, and you probably don't have a whole lot of action figures or statues of them because, you know, they just didn't break out into pop culture like a lot of the others did. But
although, I'm going to talk about one that might soon.
okay. So, still pretty cool, guys. And then later, we're gonna be trying to stump the old man again.
Yeah.
Best 2 out of 3 trivia questions from comic books.
Why don't you stump the dog?
I don't think that's gonna take much. I'm sorry.
He's pretty sharp. He's pretty sharp.
All right, strap on your utility belts, kids. This is Back Issues. Hey comic lovers, so as we said, today we're talking about obscure comic book characters, and as you can see on our table here, usually whenever we have a topic we like to decorate it up with, you know, statues, figurines, toys, something that is related to the topic we're talking about today, but we don't have anything.
Got nothing.
Yeah.
Nope.
Because these characters, they don't have a whole lot of figures or statues, and if they do have them, well, we don't have them.
I've never seen them.
Yeah. So, let's get into it. Are you ready to go?
Sure.
All right. So, you want me to kick it off?
Yeah, you go ahead.
All right. So, my first obscure comic book character who holds a special place in my heart, character by the name of Bloodwind. And Bloodwind was really popular in the late 80s, early 90s in DC Comics. And he has a bit of an interesting history. He is the descendant of slaves. And his power comes from the blood gem, which his ancestors created, and the blood gem is passed from person to person, and it holds it. You can harness the power of your ancestors with it, which is what gives Bloodwind his super strength and other abilities. And one thing that's interesting about Bloodwind is he has no secret identity. I mean, he's just Bloodwind all the time.
You know, that's got to make dating a little bit difficult.
Yeah, maybe. It's like, you know, you fill out your dating profile, Bloodwind. Like, that's, yeah.
Which way do you swipe when you don't want them?
Swipe left.
Okay, that's going to get you a lot of left swipes.
Yeah. And his story gets a little bit complicated at one point because there was a villain by the name of Rot. And,
Rot?
Rot.
R-O-T.
R-O-T-T.
Same thing.
Yeah. And it was the spirit of the slave owner from his ancestors. And he tries to corrupt the blood gem that Bloodwind wears around his chest. So Martian Manhunter tries to aid his fellow hero by kind of exorcising Rot out of it, and it doesn't go as planned. And somehow Rot gets into Martian Manhunter's mind, and he convinces him to take on the disguise of Bloodwind. So
He's a shapeshifter, so...
Yeah. So for a time, who we think is Bloodwind is actually Martian Manhunter in disguise. And
okay.
It's around this time that Bloodwind joins the Justice League. And for most people, when they think of the Justice League, you know, they think of, you know, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Green Lantern.
Okay. I have to interject. The original Justice League team, no Batman, no Superman. They were not on the original team.
Okay, true. But
irrelevant.
Eventually they become prominent members.
Yes, they did.
Anyways, in the early 90s, there was a much weaker version of the Justice League.
Much weaker.
Yes. You know, I think Bloodwind, I would say, was his most powerful full-time member. You had Bloodwind, you know, John Jones disguised as Bloodwind. You had Guy Gardner. You had Fire and Ice, Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, and Maxima. Also pretty powerful. And unfortunately, this is around the time that Doomsday attacks. And
bad timing.
Yeah. And in the story leading up to the death of Superman, the Justice League battles with Doomsday.
And it's like a hot knife through butter.
Yeah, it doesn't go well for most of them. I mean, imagine Blue Beetle trying to stand up to Doomsday. Does not end well. And but Bloodwind, he actually throws a few hits in, and he is also responsible for saving a lot of civilians while Superman keeps Doomsday busy. So really cool story for Bloodwind, I thought. And some of his lesser known powers is he has the power of necromancy, and like I said, summons the strength from his ancestors. So eventually, the original Bloodwind comes back. John Jones returns to his normal form, and he goes on being a superhero for a while, but then he kind of falls off the radar in the late 90s. I think 99 was his last appearance that I could research, so you don't hear much about him after that. If you know what happened to him, leave it in the comments section. I couldn't find exactly what ended his story online, so please let us know if you know yourself. So there it is. There's Bloodwind's a short summary there. So what do you got for us, Dad?
All right. Another guy who I've never seen an action figure for. Don't know that I ever will. But he started in Whiz Comics #2 in 1940 with Fawcett Comics. Fawcett Comics was the home of Billy Batson, Captain Marvel. No, his name wasn't Shazam. His name was Captain Marvel. Sorry, Marvel Comics. But at any rate, Ibis the Invincible was a magician. Just like Doctor Strange, Zatanna, and he probably owed his roots to another guy you'd never heard of, Mandrake the Magician, who was kind of popular back in his day. Ibis uses a magic wand that I think was called the Ibis Stick. Hey, I didn't name it. It's a stupid name for a magic wand, but he used the Ibis Stick to do magical stuff like teleporting, summoning things out of thin air, force fields, the usual stuff you do with a magic wand. His great weakness was, you take away the wand, he's just a guy. And his enemies used that tactic many, many times. Then in around the early to mid 2000s, DC purchased the character. I think he might have had a panel or two in Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is how they introduced him, but I haven't seen anything since then. But there you go for my first obscure character.
All right. So, on to my next one. And this one, he's not so interesting for his actual character, more interesting for who created him. So, after Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster lost the rights to Superman through DC Comics.
They just about gave the rights away.
Yeah, pretty much. So they started out at a new comic book company, and they attempted to recapture the same magic that Superman had. But they wanted to do something a little bit different. They wanted a different superhero, less, all-powerful, more funny. So in comes their creation, the Funny Man. And, yeah. Funny Man is a comedian named Larry who accidentally foils a crime. They were supposed to stage a crime that he foils as part of a publicity stunt for his stand-up routine, but, circumstances, one thing after another happens, and he actually ends up foiling a real crime. So Larry decides that he likes the thrill of it and decides to become a crime fighter. So Funny Man is born. And, he has all these different gags that you would expect from a clown/comedian. He's got the punching bag arm.
Then he had a squirting flower.
Squirting flower. He had spring-filled shoes. All kinds of different gags like that. One of the things that was interesting about Funny Man was that his love interest, unlike other love interests in comic books at the time, her name was June, actually knew his secret identity and tries to convince him to, give up his life of crime fighting because, she's afraid he's going to get hurt.
Probably a smart plan.
Yeah. So basically, Funny Man was like a Looney Tunes who happens to fight crime. But unfortunately, it failed to catch on, and Funny Man was canceled after just 6 issues. A daily comic strip was actually created for about a year after that, but then that too was canceled. And that was the last we ever saw of Funny Man. And unfortunately, Jerry and Joe just couldn't capture the same magic as Superman. So there's your brief history of Funny Man. So back over to you.
Well, I've got two that I found interesting, not so much because they're obscure, but because in the near future they won't be obscure. And first one, Peacemaker. Made his first appearance in 1966 in Fighting 5 number 40 for Charlton Comics. This is a guy who, he's a weapons inventor, kind of like Tony Stark, but without all the money. And he's also an ace fighter pilot. So he becomes obsessed with keeping peace, even if he has to resort to the ultimate violent acts to keep the peace. His helmet is, as far as I could tell, just a normal helmet, but he hears the voices of victims who were killed by terrorists, which spurs him on to, keep fighting the good fight. He was a moderately interesting character for Charlton. I read a couple of those comics, and I thought they were pretty good. And then DC bought all of the Charlton characters. They got Blue Beetle. They got several other guys. Charlton had a pretty decent lineup. Oh, The Question. They had a pretty decent lineup of characters. Well, they got them all. And then there's a couple of panels again in Crisis on Infinite Earths where you see Peacemaker. Might have just been one panel. Then they messed with his origin some. They changed him again in the New 52 when it launched. But in Suicide Squad number 2, which we're hoping comes out next year, 2021, he'll be played by John Cena. The other character is Bloodsport. Bloodsport was Robert Dubois, who during the Vietnam War was drafted, fled to Canada because he was afraid. His younger brother took his place, pretending he was Robert, and in combat in Vietnam, he lost both arms and both legs, which, let's face it, that messed with Robert's mind. Luthor found out about him, good old Lex Luthor, and he gets a hold of him, brings him back to the States, and equips him with the ability to teleport weapons from an undisclosed location to him, so that Bloodsport can just think of a weapon, it's in his hands, and he can use it. And of course, since it's Luthor, he hates Superman, gives him the ability to use kryptonite weapons, and sends him out to assassinate Superman.
So a lot like Metallo.
Except he's not a weapon, he uses weapons.
Okay.
I think Jimmy Olsen saved Superman the first time, somehow it just distracts Bloodsport. So, needless to say, he didn't win. And then DC introduced a couple of other Bloodsports. One was a member of the White Aryans, which I don't know how you go from Robert Dubois to this guy, but they did. And then there was a third one that I know absolutely nothing about. And he's going to also be in Suicide Squad number 2, played by Idris Elba, incredibly talented actor. So I'm assuming they're going to use the first incarnation of Bloodsport.
Hope so.
Yeah.
So both about to hit the big time.
We can always hope.
Yeah.
All right.
Suicide Squad, you never know.
All right. Bring us home.
All right. So this next character, now we talked about how these characters are so obscure they don't have a lot of statues or action figures of them. But imagine only being slightly known for only being an action figure. So
that's different.
Yeah. If you were a kid like me in the late 80s and you liked superheroes, you probably had a couple of action figures from the Superpowers line by DC Comics.
Who had those action figures?
I did. I mean, you did too, but I had a lot of them. So, in the 80s, like, these were some of my first action figures, and they were really cool. And, if you looked at their full line, you see a lot of your favorite, DC Comics superheroes. You got your Batman, your Superman, Wonder Woman, all cool. You got your Green Lantern, Flash, okay. And, but wait a minute. Who the hell is this guy? The Golden Pharaoh? What the hell? Golden Pharaoh was created exclusively for the third release of the Superpowers line of action figures. He did not exist before then. And he only appears in 9 issues of the Superpowers comic books, which, again, were created just because of the action figures. And he has a brief biography. I think you find it on the back of his blister is where it comes from. So, archaeologist Ashley Halberstam was at a dig site in Egypt when he was struck by a bolt from a New Genesis laboratory. The bolt changed him into the Golden Pharaoh and gave him the power of the pyramids, which could be channeled through his staff. The Golden Pharaoh joined forces with Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman to defeat Darkseid. So there it is. And his abilities are he can generate energy blasts through his mystical pyramid staff, and his glider wings enable him to fly. So that's pretty much the entire biography of the Golden Pharaoh. The only other time that he appears is when his action figure is re-released as part of the DC Universe line of action figures in 2010. So if you want an obscure comic book character, look no further than the Golden Pharaoh.
There you go. Well, that wraps up some of these obscure characters that we found.
What obscure characters did we miss that you like? Tell us about in the comment section. And also, if you have ideas for future episodes, let us know.
Please.
Yeah,
Please.
We're wearing down our list right now.
He's going to make me do Rob Liefeld soon, and I don't want to.
Do you get how much he loves Rob Liefeld by now? So, we had a couple ideas, but, we'd love to hear yours. So, tell us about it in the comments section. And don't forget to like and subscribe. If not for our sake, then for Thor's. Speaking of Thor, let's toss it back up to him in the garage. All right, kids, we're back out here in the garage with Thor, the mighty puppy here.
And the old man.
And the old man. You were with me in the basement, so,
Still, maybe come out here again.
There you go, buddy. All right, and now we are going to play Stump the Old Man. Best 2 out of 3 questions here.
I live for the moment.
All right. First one here. What trophy from the Batcave first appeared in World's Finest number 30?
You don't know either. Wrong company, right? But at any rate, let's see. I only can think of 2 trophies in the Batcave. One was the ginormous penny, and the other was the dinosaur, the T-Rex. I don't know which one, because as far back as I remember, they were both there, and I don't remember what cases it was, so I'm going to just guess. I'll go with the T-Rex.
That would be incorrect.
50-50, I'm always wrong.
The giant penny in the Batcave is a trophy Batman took from his defeat of the Penny Plunderer, who first appeared in World's Finest number 30.
Stupid name. Why do you keep a trophy from that?
All right, so you're over 1. Not a good start here.
Great.
All right, so because we have Thor the puppy here, I thought we would do a animal-related question here.
I thought you were going to do another Thor question. We did one last week.
Yeah, we switch it up.
All right, animal-related question.
All right. What was the name of Superman's cat?
His cat?
His cat.
Okay, everybody knows Crypto, his dog. There was a flying horse named Comet. It seems like there was a chimp, but I don't remember what the chimp's name was. If y'all know what the chimp's name was, put in the comments. And the cat, I don't know whose pet he was, if he was Superman, Superboy, Supergirl, but there was a cat, and the cat's name was Freaky.
The cat's name, Streaky, first appeared in Action Comics number 261 and was created by Jerry Siegel and Jim Mooney. There was a whole line of different Kryptonian pets that they introduced during that time.
I don't know if the horse was a Kryptonian pet, but whatever.
Okay. All right, so 1 for 2. All right, here we go. What teenager did Bruce Banner save from a gamma bomb?
Okay, got that one. So, Hulk pushed a young Rick Jones into a ditch to keep him getting hit by the gamma rays, or he would have had a very different Hulk. Rick became like a buddy, a friend to the Hulk, and then Captain America got involved, and Rick became Bucky for a while, and then he teamed up with the original Captain Marvel, and they switched places, kind of like Firestorm did for a while, where one of them had to be in some pocket dimension while the other one was on Earth, and he bangs his wristbands together to switch.
That was Rick Jones, and in addition to what you said, he also teamed up with Rom the Space Knight at one point.
I don't know why. Anyway.
All right, so 2 out of 3, so Dad wins once again, and Thor wins a treat.
You know, we're going to have to make some adjustments here.
All right, comic lovers, that about does it for this week's episode. But before we go, let's talk about what we're going to be discussing for next week's episode. He doesn't know yet. Next week, we're going to be talking about the comic industry of the 90s.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was a very interesting time for comic books. Not what I would say a good time for comic books for the most part, if you were around during that time. But we're going to be getting more in depth with it next week. All right, and Thor is going to be joining us once again, of course. Aren't you, boy? Yeah.
All right, so you true believers, stay safe.
Excelsior.